Trump's 2025 Gulf tour was something else. A wild mix of trillion-dollar deals, extravagant optics, and bold diplomacy across Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE.
Yeah, It really seems like Trump was setting the stage for a new Middle East playbook, pushing America's economic and military agenda while trying to counterbalance rising influences like China and even the BRICS, right?
Exactly. And what stands out is how lavish it all was. In Saudi Arabia, for example, you had military jets escorting Air Force One, traditional performances welcoming him, and then a ceremonial golf cart ride to a state dinner, all orchestrated by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman.
Right, yep. And then there's the staggering economic component, like over $1 trillion in deals, including that $600 billion Saudi investment in the US over 4 years, which targeted sectors like AI and energy, among others. It's hard not to think, this is about reasserting US dominance via massive financial commitments.
Right. It's like Trump's approach was to pretty much mix big money with big symbols. His staff included heavyweights like the CEOs of Amazon, Nvidia, Tesla, and Palantir. They were all there to hammer out deals in tech, defense, and infrastructure.
Yeah, and then there's the striking contrast, right? On one hand, you have these massive deals and high-level glitzy diplomatic meetings, and on the other hand, serious issues like the worsening humanitarian crisis in Gaza and rising tensions with Iran. How do you square that?
That's precisely what makes it fascinating. While Trump locked in all these multi-trillion-dollar commitments, his proposals for Gaza, like turning it into the Riviera of the Middle East or relocating its population, raised serious human rights concerns and drew condemnations as ethnic cleansing by legal experts.
It's almost paradoxical. You have on one hand deals that are about cutting-edge AI and defense, and on the other, policies in Gaza that, well, seem to undermine international norms. Doesn't it create a conflicting image of American power?
Absolutely. And that's where the debate really heats up. For instance, while Trump's trade and defense deals, like those in the UAE for a $1.4 trillion economic package covering AI, energy, and defense, exude strength, his diplomatic pivot on Gaza clashed with both regional sentiment and legal principles.
Speaking of the UAE, Trump even received the Order of Zayed there, which is a major civilian honor. That's a pretty big symbolic nod, especially considering the UAE's balancing act as a US ally, while also engaging with countries like China and Russia by joining BRICS.
Yeah, and it really underscores the multiplicity of the region's dynamics. On one hand, you've got wealthy, technologically ambitious states doing their best to diversify, like Saudi Arabia with its Vision 2030, while on the other, there are ongoing conflicts and deep-seated regional tensions with Iran and in Gaza.
And then there's Qatar. Trump's visit in Doha was marked by a notable mix of military and commercial deals with a whopping $1.2 trillion economic exchange, including that record deal with Qatar Airways for hundreds of Boeing jets. It's almost like every Gulf state had its own flavor of economic and symbolic diplomacy.
Right, and what's interesting in Qatar is that while they signed those expansive commercial and defense deals, the symbolic moment of handing over the World Cup baton really highlighted Qatar's soft power. But Trump's recitations on Gaza somewhat overshadowed that, revealing a tension between economic pragmatism and humanitarian concerns.
Yeah, indeed. Don't you think it's a bit contradictory? On one hand, pushing forward massive deals and affirming military alliances, and then on the other hand, having proposals in Gaza that are, well, legally and morally controversial? It seems like his priorities are all over the map.
Well, that's the crux of it. Trump's tour was a deliberate balancing act, demonstrating U.S. economic might and military strength while at times ignoring or downplaying pressing humanitarian issues. His aggressive stance toward Iran, for instance, paired with threats of sanctions or even military action, also wasn't fully aligned with the more tempered diplomatic approaches preferred by many Gulf states.
It almost seems like he was trying too hard to deliver a message of American decisiveness, even if it meant clashing with regional allies who wanted a softer, more diplomatic touch.
Exactly. And the scene in Saudi Arabia is a prime example. Trump pushed for Saudi Arabia to align with the Abraham Accords, but when the response was muted, it reflected Saudi insistence on the need for a Palestinian state. This subtle diplomatic back and forth underscores the limits of American influence in some respects, despite the economic heft on the table.
Right, yeah. And the implications extend even further, right? There's also the angle with Syria. Trump's lifting of sanctions and then meeting with Syria's new president, which was historic after 25 years, shows that he was willing to pivot on old policies for the sake of reconstruction. Yet, I wonder, does this approach actually help in the long run, especially with the unresolved issues in Israel and Gaza?
You've hit the nail on the head. On one hand, it seemed like an opening for normalizing relations and rebuilding war-torn areas. But then you have the situation in Gaza, where his proposals still remained highly contentious. It portrays a picture of a president who's quite willing to mix his economic ambitions with big, sweeping diplomatic moves, even if some are deeply problematic.
And what about Iran? Trump's invitation to renegotiate the nuclear deal was paired with clearly stated threats, which, by the way, raised tensions with Israel. Israel, feeling even more precarious after the events of 2023, saw that as an opportunity to possibly push back more aggressively against Iran. It's almost like these moves were interwoven into a larger, more delicate strategy that risked alienating traditional U.S. allies in the process.
Exactly, and it's like there's this layered message. On one hand, you have Trump asserting U.S. dominance by securing trillions in investments and strengthening military ties. On the other, his actions, especially regarding Gaza and Iran, expose a sort of overreach that muddies the overall impact of the tour.
Right, yeah. So, would you say his achievements in technology and defense really outweigh the diplomatic and humanitarian missteps? Or do the latter create a legacy that overshadows the former?
That's a excellent question. It really boils down to priorities and long-term consequences. The trillion-dollar deals and strategic partnerships in AI, energy, and defense provide tangible economic and security benefits. But at the same time, policies in Gaza and the aggressive stance on Iran might compromise America's moral authority and destabilize delicate regional balances.
I see that, and I think there's also a risk here. Even if you secure all the economic benefits, overlooking humanitarian crises and alienating key regional players can, backfire, potentially sowing the seeds of future conflicts.
Right. And while Trump's style was very much about displaying power and wealth, it also inadvertently highlighted the divide between, say, pure economic ambitions and the complex, often unpredictable realm of real-world diplomacy.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of real-world diplomacy, how do you see the role of traditional Gulf values and modern ambitions interacting here? For instance, Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 is a solid example of that, where traditional power structures are now mixed with a push for technological and economic diversification.
Absolutely. It's like a balancing act between preserving cultural and traditional legacies and adapting to global modernization trends. Trump's tour, with its blend of royal pomp and ultra-modern deals in AI and defense, really brought that dichotomy into sharp focus.
And how about the symbolism? I mean, the UAE's display, the Al Ayala dance, and even closing the Sheikh Zayed Grand Mosque for the occasion signals a deep cultural pride and a message of unity. Yet, it's interwoven with these massive economic narratives. It's fascinating how the ceremonies and deals propose a new kind of statecraft, where culture and capital intermingle.
Yeah, totally. It's like they're saying, we value our unique heritage here, while simultaneously inviting huge investments and military collaborations, which reinforces an image of strength and modernity. And then Trump, by receiving the Order of Zayed, kinda symbolizes that mutual recognition despite the differing priorities.
Right, yeah. I have to challenge one thing, though. While these grand deals sound excellent on paper, do you think the overnight infusion of such massive investments and defense contracts will truly translate into long-term stability for the region? Or might it be just a temporary band-aid on a much deeper set of issues?
That's a very fair critique. I mean, yes, the economic injections and defense alignments are significant, but they're not a cure-all. The underlying conflicts, like the Gaza crisis, the Iranian tensions, and even internal challenges within these Gulf states, suggest that while these deals might provide a short-term boost, they won't, on their own, solve the geopolitical riddles of the region.
So, in essence, Trump's tour was both a masterstroke of economic maneuvering and a reminder of the limitations inherent in trying to use raw financial power and military strength to resolve deep-seated ideological and humanitarian issues.
Exactly. And it also serves as a case study in modern geopolitics where money, military might, culture, and contentious diplomacy all collide. And the dynamics, like the UAE flirting with BRICS even as they partner with the US, emphasize the multipolar reality of today's Middle East.
Right, yeah. It's almost like watching a high-stakes chess game where every move is both a power play and a potential misstep. And it begs the question, can we really mix trillion-dollar deals with solving centuries-old conflicts effectively?
True, it's the ultimate balancing act. And while Trump's tour showcased unparalleled economic and military commitments, it also exposed the tightrope walk between projecting power and fostering genuine, sustainable peace.
And as we watch these events unfold, it'll be interesting to see if the legacy of these visits is measured in financial gains and military alliances, or if the humanitarian and diplomatic fallout ends up telling a different story in the long run.
Absolutely. And it reminds us that in international relations, especially in a region as complex as the Middle East, every grand gesture carries the weight of profound consequences.
Right, yes. So, in closing, while Trump's 2025 Gulf tour was undeniably a spectacle of deals, diplomacy, and opulent rituals, it also highlighted that true power lies in understanding and managing the multifaceted realities of global challenges.
Exactly. It's a vivid reminder that in the realm of geopolitics, even trillion-dollar deals and dazzling ceremonies must reckon with deep, unresolved issues. Thanks for the engaging discussion. Always a pleasure dissecting such intricate dynamics together.
Indeed.